Butcher, Homelander, and the rest of the crew for Prime Video's The Boys are back for the 5th and final season. Will this ultimate showdown deliver the blood-soaked climax worthy of the series, or is it going to peter out like when the Deep attempts to stand up for himself? It's Homelander's world, completely subject to his erratic, egomaniacal whims. With Hughie, and Frenchie imprisoned in a freedom camp, Annie struggles to mount a resistance against the overwhelming Supe force. When an absent Butcher reappears, he sets in motion a chain of events that will forever change the world and everyone in it. The satire this season is on full blast, and the writing pulls absolutely zero punches when it comes to calling out the hypocrisy, lunacy, and downright criminal behavior that the current U.S. administration is carrying out. And while the first few seasons were way more subtle, Season 4 began to take off the gloves. This is a whole new level of trolling, though. You could consider it art imitating life, but in reality, it's kind of art decimating life. I was sat for the whole thing. The show is now blatantly making fun of the ineptitude, all while enveloping it in a wickedly violent fight for dominance. Now, I've seen the first 7 of 8 episodes, and even though this will be a weekly episodic release, there's so much content packed into just about every episode that it's going to make that weekly watch something to look forward to. Now, Homelander is more out of control than ever, with Anthony Starr perfectly encapsulating the hubristic narcissism of an inept leader who is only effective through the threat of retaliation. And there's this level of delusion that he depicts that it's just freakishly relevant. But the way Starr holds his jaw and sets his eyes, the menace is just as palpable as the vitriol that he spews from his mouth. And I love how the character attempts to be this man's man, but the fragility of his ego is so close to the surface, he does a terrible job of obscuring any sort of vulnerability. Through many interactions, we watch the tantrums just play out, usually resulting in someone ending up as mush. But the childlike mentality and behaviors mixed with a being with enormous powers make for a formidable villain and adversary to just about anybody who opposes him. Now, Karl Urban continues to be the abrasive SeaWorld spouting leader that he's always been, but this season, the writing makes Billy even more unlikable. We can see that somewhere hidden inside the character, there might be a noble pursuit or goal, but the way that he behaves and then deals with people, even his own teammates, it makes it difficult to be on his side. Once he got his soup juice, he became crueler and harder-edged, turning his callous demeanor into something that's almost impenetrable, and that threatens to create both havoc and danger for the rest of the boys. Now, I think half of the success of the storytelling is just thanks to the relationships, and it doesn't matter which side they're on. Between the massive dysfunction or the heart-wrenching potential peril, the dynamics create a strong bond between us and the characters. We all love to hate some of them, and then others, we just love to love them. And this season puts some of those emotional connections to the test. Sometimes, like how I mentioned with Butcher and then his abrasiveness, other times it's trying to come to terms with the fact that the show might kill off some of its darlings. And the stakes are felt during this season, especially as the episodes begin to culminate towards the finale. Staying true to the show's center, this season doesn't skimp on the violence and the gore. So far, not much of it is surprisingly unique like the sheep from Season 4, but that doesn't mean that we're not treated to explosive deaths and gnarly mutilations. The VFX are wonderful, and when combined with the practical buckets of blood that are spattered on the characters, it just makes for an exciting and grossly fun time. And then speaking of that humor, this continues to lean heavily on the dry and sarcastic wit rather than just straight up comedy. The darkness of the tone, it makes the situations even more bitingly hilarious. Now, sometimes because the visuals and exchanges are so on the nose, other times though, it's just simply how the story chooses to eviscerate a character through satire. And on this point, the show takes extra aim at both Christian nationalism and the toxic bro culture. Not as one, although there is some of that, but also just holding both to account for hypocrisy and downright douchery. You almost feel sorry for the Deep at one point. He's like so many of the supposed alpha males who sit alone and complain how women don't like them and are a problem for why the dude can't get a date. The show also doubles down on this by giving the Deep a podcast, which, in a painfully accurate way, mimics all of the talking head bros who can't seem to realize that they are their own worst enemy when it comes to a relationship, choosing to wallow in their collective self-pity while jack-a-lacking to the images of other guys that they hold up as ideals. From the commercials that are pushed by the deep to all the anti-women, pro-dude posters on the walls of his podcast studio, it mercilessly paints a picture of the scourge that plagues the culture today. But then, not to let religion slide by, the show absolutely obliterates the Christian nationalist ideal, visually nailing the duplicity held in their beliefs, spouting praise Jesus in one breath while following it with kill the gays in the next. The commentary contained here, it's poignant and priceless. And right at the center is Daveed Diggs, channeling this mix of Joel Osteen and his portrayal of Thomas Jefferson in Hamilton. Whenever he is on screen, Diggs steals the scenes. I mean, you may need to take a shower after experiencing his smarmy pseudo-religious aura, but it's so worth it. There's so much more commentary also contained within the show, but if you only watch for the evil versus not as evil, the showdowns and the drama are intense. Storyline has an urgency to it that mostly keeps the pacing tight. Now, the boys are racing against a clock of sorts, while Homelander is also doing the same. And the results could be catastrophic depending on who wins. Maybe. But there are times when I'm not sure anyone is going to be better off, regardless of who accomplishes their goals first. But that tension, combined then with the peril of the characters face, it makes just about every episode wildly engaging. That being said, though, one of the episodes comes across as more of a distraction, at least in part, providing several different viewpoints of various characters in kind of a progression. We see a series of events through different eyes, like we start with a scene seeing from Butcher's perspective, then switch to Terror's point of view, then to swap again to somebody else. Instead of coming across as creative, it just halted the pacing, mainly because this portion of the story didn't feel like it was moving the plot forward. It was still fun to watch the different perspectives play out, but not completely necessary just for a couple of laughs. There's also a strange vibe that certainly makes this feel as though the series is trying up all of the ends for some conclusion, but not in an organic manner. Some characters like Ryan feel as though they've either been forgotten about because they only pop in and out sporadically, or that they're squeezed in just to be present. In these instances, I mean, it's obvious that the story is attempting to wrap everything up and bring closure while not having characters just simply disappear from the narrative. But it's obvious and not accomplished smoothly, feeling more clumsy than planned. There's so much to enjoy within this final season, most of it bitingly witty and full of harsh social critique, but also a lot of dramatic superhero mayhem that's way too comfortable in crafting disgusting visuals through barbaric deaths, all to satiate the twisted bloodlust of its viewers, myself included. The commentary isn't subtle, and most of the time it's so in our faces it's impossible not to catch the meanings, but sometimes the cheap seats need a little more of an obvious visual. Not every story beat is effective, and there is a certain hurried feeling, but these aren't enough to ruin the vibe that the show is wonderfully manufactured. While I haven't seen the finale, the story from episodes 1 through 7 skillfully switches from delivering emotional gut punches, fierce character decisions, questionable morality, and savage battles. The VFX are convincingly grotesque, the acting is infuriatingly captivating, and the story never allows the humor to overshadow the sharpness of the storytelling. But this manages to deliver a Shakespearean-esque tragedy where the writers aren't afraid to do terrible things to characters, even those we may absolutely love. The Boys Season 5 is a wild ride with some pretty high risks, but the show nails just about all of them. There's sex, nudity, an absolute ton of profanity, and then a lot of gory violence. I give The Boys Season 5 4.5 out of 5 couches. Despite being a little too on the nose with its commentary, I still had a blast. Okay, who's your favorite character in the series? Mine has mainly been Kimiko, and after this season, she remains the one that I love to watch the most. Let me know yours, though, in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.